place so ancient, its stories are literally written in clay. So grab your metaphorical time machine, because we're about to dive deep into the world of ziggurats, kings, and the very first cities. Think of them as the lifeblood of this entire region. This silt was like a magic ingredient for farming. It was so good that people didn't have to wander around hunting and gathering anymore. It's the reason we have cities, governments, and, well, pretty much civilization as we know it. The story of Mesopotamia isn't just one story. It's a saga of different peoples and empires rising and falling over thousands of years. It all started with a group called the Sumerians. Around 4000 BCE, these guys were the original innovators. They weren't a single unified empire, but a collection of independent city-states like Uruk, Ur, and Eridu. One of the most famous stories ever written, the Epic of Gilgamesh, comes from these clay tablets. Why do we have 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in an hour? Mesopotamia. Why are there 360 degrees in a circle? Mesopotamia. Their legacy is literally all around us, ticking away on our clocks. But as with all great powers, the Sumerian dominance didn't last forever. Around 2334 BCE, a new power emerged. The Akkadians, led by a legendary figure named Sargon the Great. Sargon wasn't born into royalty. He was a self-made man who rose from humble beginnings to create the world's first-ever empire. He conquered the Sumerian city-states one by one and united Mesopotamia under a single ruler. This was a huge shift. For the first time, a vast territory with different peoples and cultures was governed by a central authority. The Akkadian Empire was a military powerhouse, but they also respected and adopted much of Sumerian culture, including the cuneiform script. Their empire lasted for about 150 years before it crumbled, partly due to internal rebellions and climate change-induced drought. After a period of chaos, Mesopotamia saw the rise of another powerhouse, the Babylonians. And when you think of Babylon, one name probably comes to mind: Hammurabi. Around 1792 BCE, Hammurabi ascended the throne of Babylon, and like Sargon, he was a brilliant military strategist and administrator. He expanded his kingdom to control all of Mesopotamia, creating the first Babylonian Empire. But Hammurabi is most famous for his code of laws. He had nearly 300 laws carved into a massive stone monument, or stele, for all to see. This wasn't the first law code, but it's the most famous and best preserved. The laws covered everything from property rights and trade to family law and professional standards. It famously operated on the principle of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, meaning the punishment should fit the crime. It was harsh by today's standards, but it was a monumental step towards a society governed by written, public laws, rather than the whims of a ruler. Let's jump forward a bit. After Hammurabi's empire declined, the region was dominated for centuries by the Assyrians, a fearsome and highly organized military society from northern Mesopotamia. Think of them as the Spartans of the ancient Near East. They were masters of siege warfare, using battering rams, siege towers, and brutal tactics to conquer their enemies. Their capital, Nineveh, was a magnificent city with a legendary library built by King Ashurbanipal. He was obsessed with collecting all the written knowledge of Mesopotamia, and thanks to his obsession, tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets, including the Epic of Gilgamesh, were preserved for us to find. But the Assyrians' brutal rule made them many enemies. In 612 BCE, a coalition of Babylonians and Medes sacked Nineveh, bringing the mighty Assyrian Empire to its knees. This paved the way for the rise of the Neo-Babylonian Empire and its most celebrated king Nebuchadnezzar II. The land between the rivers would continue to be an important and contested region for centuries to come, but its days as the center of the world were over. It's incredible to think about, isn't it? For nearly 4,000 years, this region was the crucible where so many fundamental ideas of human society were forged. The very first cities, the first writing, the first laws, the first empires, they all started here, in the Fertile Crescent between the Tigris and the Euphrates. The stories of the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians are not just ancient history. They are the foundational chapters of our own human story. Their innovations in technology, government, law, and culture laid the groundwork for all the civilizations that followed, including our own. The next time you check the time, write a sentence, or think about the law, spare a thought for the ancient people of Mesopotamia. We owe them more than we can imagine. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back to the Cradle of Civilization. I hope you found it as fascinating as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next historical adventure. Let me know in the comments which ancient civilization you'd like to explore next. Till then, stay curious.